Well, good evening and welcome to Hurricane Hub Live. I'm meteorologist Evan Stewart, based out of WVEC in Norfolk, Virginia. Our regular viewers know that the 13 News Now weather team hosts Hurricane Hub Live every night at 8 p.m. Now, tonight, Hurricane Hub Live is being broadcast on the Plus app of many of our sister stations all across the country. So to you, I say welcome. And tonight, it's all about Melissa, a devastating hurricane that made landfall earlier today on the South Shore of Jamaica, the strongest hurricane to make landfall on the island since we've been keeping records. And that's not all that we have to talk about, because we also have a second landfall that is coming up in Cuba later tonight, early Wednesday morning. And then later into the day on Wednesday, we have to talk about what's going on with the Bahamas, because Melissa is still a strong hurricane. It has weakened since it's made landfall, but is still going to have significant impacts here through Cuba and also into the Bahamas as we go through the day on Wednesday. So here's the latest as far as the landfall of Melissa. It made landfall near New Hope, Jamaica around 1 o'clock this afternoon. It was a Category 5 hurricane with winds of 185 miles per hour and a central pressure of 892 millibars. So what does that mean? This means it was one of the strongest hurricanes on record in the Atlantic basin. That includes the Atlantic, the Caribbean, and the Gulf. As a matter of fact, the strongest hurricane was Hurricane Wilma back in 2005. Had a central pressure down to 892 millibars. The lower the pressure, the lower that number, the stronger the hurricane is. Hurricane Gilbert in 1988 got down to 888 millibars. That storm also impacted Jamaica. It didn't do it when it was that strong, but still, that was the last significant hurricane to impact the island of Jamaica. And then the Labor Day hurricane, going all the way back to 1935, got down to 892 millibars. That's the same pressure that Melissa had when it made landfall in Jamaica. And that was the strongest the storm had been. So it strengthened as it approached the island of Jamaica. And then also back in 2005, a very active hurricane year, we had Hurricane Rita, which had a central pressure of 895 millibars. So let's talk about the latest here with the satellite loop. Here's that eye as the storm made landfall there on the southwestern tip of the island of Jamaica, again, around New Hope earlier this afternoon. And notice how the eye has become obscured. We've started to see it interact with the land. We've also seen that inner eye wall collapse and an outer eye wall form. And we can enhance this satellite view and see that a little bit more. Again, that well-formed eye, very symmetrical, that came ashore in western Jamaica this afternoon, and now it is working its way here north of Jamaica and south of the island of Cuba. We'll give you a closer look, again, at that well-formed eye, again, sort of that collapse of the eye, the interaction with the land, and also some internal changes within the storm as it worked its way here across Jamaica. But now we're starting to see that eye reform here south of Cuba, and Cuba, again, is next in line for the path of the storm. So we'll widen it back out a bit. Hurricane Hunter aircraft have been out there investigating. You can see they flew through the north center of the storm, found a maximum sustained wind at a flight level of 97 miles per hour. That's sort of an average over 30 seconds, and a flight level wind speed of 109. That's a 10-second average. So there's still a lot of strong winds here with Hurricane Melissa. A couple of things about the Hurricane Hunter aircraft. Yesterday, one of the NOAA aircraft, as they were flying into it, they experienced such turbulence, they had to turn around and go back. And then earlier today, one of the Air Force Hurricane Hunter aircraft, they went through the eye wall when it was very strong just before it made landfall, and saw some of the worst turbulence that they had ever experienced. And there was actually some concern that the airplane suffered damage. They actually flew around the eye a few times and then went back to Curacao to inspect the plane. So again, we've had hundreds and hundreds of missions, and it's very rare for Hurricane Hunter aircraft to have to turn around and abort a mission. And with this storm being so strong, we had two that had issues just over the day yesterday. So again, another indication of just how strong Melissa was earlier today before it made landfall, and yesterday as it was continuing to strengthen and rapidly develop. So here's the 8 o'clock advisory from the National Hurricane Center just coming in. 125-mile-per-hour winds with gusts of 175. So again, it has weakened. Still a major hurricane, a Category 3 hurricane that is moving to the north-northeast at 8 miles per hour. And of course, that slow movement, one of the concern because we saw the strong winds, prolonged winds, and the very heavy rain. Big mountains here in eastern Jamaica. As a matter of fact, some of those mountains over 7,000 feet. So that's more than a mile high. And the concern is with all the rain that has fallen, that there would be mudslides. And again, it's going to be several days before we know exactly how impactful the storm was around the point of landfall. Power issues certainly concern for much of the island. And now we have to worry about eastern parts of Cuba as the storm moves off towards the north. Might re-strengthen a little bit. We saw that eye starting to reform a bit here south of Cuba, so there might be a little bit of re-strengthening back up to 140 miles per hour late tonight into early tomorrow morning, back into a Category 4 storm. Again, it's not going to make a lot of difference whether it's 125, 135, or 140 miles per hour because the storm is still going to produce copious amounts of rain here across eastern Cuba. And then as we get into the afternoon on Wednesday, we're talking about the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos dealing with a landfall as well. And then finally, the storm will move off towards the north, rapidly accelerating off towards the northeast, and by Saturday and Sunday off the east coast of Canada. We have a pretty strong front that is going to move through the eastern United States on Thursday, and that's going to help usher the storm out into the Atlantic. So let's talk about what we're looking at with Cuba now as we go here through the night, and then we'll move on to the Bahamas. So this is one of our computer models. This is the graph model, the IBM model, and it's showing, that eye and the storm coming ashore here. And these are some of the winds that are forecast here. It says rainfall, but it should be winds here. Forecast as the storm continues to move off towards the north. Again, we're looking, even as the storm moves ashore, 80-mile-per-hour wind gusts here through eastern Cuba. As you get over towards Guantanamo, about 55-mile-per-hour gusts, so tropical storm force strength. The good news with this storm, as it came ashore, it was very compact. It was a small storm, so the strongest winds were right around that eye wall, and that's what we'll see here, even as the storm moves across Cuba. By Wednesday morning, still looking at gusts over 70 miles per hour here on the north shore of Cuba, and then it'll continue to move north as we head here towards the Bahamas, looking at wind gusts over 90 miles per hour. Could see wind gusts over 100 miles per hour here through parts of the Bahamas as the storm continues to move off towards the north and out into the Atlantic Ocean. So again, not done with this storm by any stretch of the imagination. Cuba is next in line in the path of Hurricane Melissa. As a matter of fact, more than 100,000 people have evacuated from their homes as the storm barrels towards the island. Cuba's military is preparing to support the country with rescue and recovery efforts, and all public transport has been suspended while locals flocked to stock up on supplies. CNN's Patrick Oppman is in Santiago de Cuba with more.
The first outer bands of Hurricane Melissa are beginning to arrive here in eastern Cuba. Of course, conditions are just going to get worse and worse. We'd seen the streets up until now really kind of full of people doing their last minute shopping that they could, trying to find food, cash from ATMs. And now it's a lot more subdued, a bit of a ghost town. People are nervous, and they have very good cause to be, because this is one of the most powerful hurricanes that this part of Cuba has seen in years, if not longer. And the question is when these punishing winds come in, they will pick up roof tiles on some of these older homes, and those become shrapnel. Some of these houses, which are in some cases more than 100, 200 years old, it's not clear if they will withstand Melissa's punishing winds. Thousands of people have evacuated from low-lying areas, but by and large, people say they've done this before, they're used to hurricanes, they don't evacuate, they just wait it out in their homes, and you just have to wonder if this time around, if that's the wise choice to do, because this is simply a storm that could be more powerful than anything Cubans have seen in their lifetime. Patrick Oppman, CNN, Santiago de Cuba.
Now, after this short break, we'll take a look at the human side of the storm, from the people ready to help to the Americans on the island. Welcome back to Hurricane Hub Live. It'll be days before we know the full extent of the damage done by Hurricane Melissa, but Virginia Beach-based Operation Blessing is ready to help Jamaica. Teams are packing relief bags for communities there, and the organization's senior director says they're ready to deploy as soon as conditions are safe.
So we're assessing right now what is going to be the best option for us and the fastest, because we want to get there as fast as possible.
Crews will pre-stage in Miami so they can catch the first flight to Jamaica, and the leaders tell us that they will stay as long as the situation requires. Now, a North Carolina couple is stuck in Jamaica as Hurricane Melissa makes landfall, and they're hunkering down as the storm bears down on the country. WFMY's Amber Lake has more on the Roanoke Rapids residents remaining calm and hopeful.
A North Carolina couple stuck in Jamaica as a Category 5 storm heads their way.
It's very overwhelming.
Bridget and Wayne Todd are from Roanoke Rapids. For them, what started as a trip to celebrate their love.
We never took a honeymoon immediately after our wedding, so this is actually our honeymoon/anniversary trip. We just celebrated our anniversary yesterday.
Now turned into days of uncertainty, not knowing what's next.
But if it gets bad enough to actually evacuate, they have a type of bunker set up here that we would all get moved to, and they would come and escort us to them when it becomes that time.
In Greensboro, Sylvan and Candace Lewis of DeJerk Machine keep a close eye on the storm. Sylvan Lewis, born and raised in Kingston, Jamaica, knows hurricanes firsthand.
I went to a hurricane there in 1988. It's called Gilbert. Wickedest hurricane ever. Yeah, man. So we just want people to be strong, stick together, and that's the only way I'm gonna get through.
Lewis's entire family still lives in Kingston. His wife, though, says everyone is leaning heavy on their faith as the winds get stronger.
That love is, they are very resilient and strong people, very proud. So they don't let things break them down easily.
We're just, asking people to, pray for us and keep, everybody here, the people, and Jamaica itself in its thoughts and prayers.
Now, they're not the only Americans dealing with Melissa. Logan Gay with our sister station in Indiana also shares what it's like being in the resort city from some Indianapolis tourists who were visiting Jamaica for a birthday trip.
Berlin Tyler and Sean Tucker have been at a resort in Jamaica since Wednesday for a joint birthday celebration.
We came in with, good spirits. Everything was great. And here we are.
They were supposed to be flying home to Indianapolis on Tuesday, but Hurricane Melissa has other plans.
All of a sudden, we started getting flight cancellation notices, and that's when we knew, things had changed.
Changed from what they say were a few rainy days to something more serious.
It's starting to get a lot darker. The clouds are becoming a lot stronger, and the wind has picked up tremendously. But of course, we haven't even hit the surface of it yet. That comes overnight, but you can definitely feel a shift in the atmosphere.
Depending on the storm, their flight has been tentatively rescheduled for Wednesday, meaning they also have to shell out some extra money for any additional days at the resort.
It takes a lot on your mental just because we don't know what to expect and we just keep hearing the worst.
As many Jamaicans are being asked to evacuate or prepare to shelter in place, many of them are still showing up to work each day at places like the resorts, trying to keep the guest spirits high as they too navigate this hurricane.
Everybody was kind of walking around kind of quiet for a little bit, but then the entertainment committee started kind of getting everybody to do other stuff. Most of our amenities have been taken away, but they've been making it fun.
Berlin says her heart goes out to the locals and she appreciates them looking out for guests.
It's kind of scary for them because they may not have a home once this is over with.
And right now, it's just the beginning.
We are enjoying the time that we have to sit out and catch some air right now, but we go back on lockdown at 9 p.m. tonight, and we'll probably be there until Wednesday.
In Indianapolis, Logan Gay, 13 News.
Now, as our climate changes, we're seeing stronger winds, higher storm surges, and record rainfalls during hurricane season. Those warmer oceans fuel storms like we're seeing right now around Jamaica and Cuba, and sea level rise makes flooding worse. Let's hear from an expert on the latest science predictions about the changing climate.
There's no question that this storm was amplified by human-caused warming, by the warming of the planet from the burning of fossil fuels and carbon pollution. We know that the maximum sustained winds of these storms increase by about 10% for each degree Celsius, almost 2 degrees Fahrenheit of warming of the ocean surface. And that's about how much the tropical Atlantic is warmed up. So this storm, because of global warming, is about 10% higher winds, and the destructive potential of the storm goes as the third power of the winds, which means it's 33% higher. And we see that in the destruction that this storm is doing. And the flooding, a warmer atmosphere holds more moisture. These storms have 20 to 30% more moisture. They produce 20 to 30% more flooding rains because of the warming of the planet. So the impacts are no longer subtle. We're seeing them play out in the devastating consequences of these storms. And look, we're not confident in whether or not there will be more hurricanes, more tropical storms, but we are confident that the strongest storms are getting stronger steadily. And we're confident that they bring with them more flooding rains. And so, the impacts, as I said, are no longer subtle. We're actually seeing them in the form of these devastating storms. And by the way, they intensify much more rapidly. And the physics here is pretty basic. The warmer the ocean surface, the greater the rates of intensification. And when these storms go from a weak tropical storm to a major hurricane in a matter of 24 hours, it's very difficult to plan for them because we don't know what's coming. We're unable to predict just how quickly they can intensify and how much more dangerous they can become. And so all of this is a consequence of the continued warming of the planet. The only way to really prevent this from getting worse is to stop what's causing the problem, to get off fossil fuels, and to do so as quickly as we can. Any response has to be a combination of, adaptation, putting in place measures to instill greater resilience in the face of these increasing threats, and mitigation, preventing it from getting worse. We have to do both. We have to prevent any worsening of the problem, and the only way we can do that, again, is by moving away from fossil fuels, moving towards clean energy, and we have to find a way to adapt to those changes that are now baked in. We're basically going to be living with these sorts of catastrophic storms for the near future, and we have to come up with a way to protect people, to prevent those from, those in harm's way from being, impacted.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for Hurricane Hub Live tonight. Thank you for joining us here in Eastern Virginia and North Carolina and all across the country. Our team of meteorologists produce Hurricane Hub Live every night during hurricane season at 8 p.m. We'll be back tomorrow night as Melissa impacts Cuba and the Bahamas. For our producer, Nia Campbell, and all of us here at 13 News Now, I'm meteorologist Evan Stewart. Have a good night.